read about how Klal Yisrael were driven out of Egypt, and this week's parsha begins, Vayhi b'shalach Paro Sa'om, and when Paro sent out the people, Chazal always tell us, whenever the Torah uses the term Vayhi, it's always an expression of pain. Why is it an expression of pain? I mean, here, Klal Yisrael finally, after 210 years, we were released after the final 10th plague, the Makas Bechoros, and not only did we leave to be free, we left with great wealth, as it says in Chazal, that the least amount of wealth that every Jew took with him was 10 pack animals, donkeys laden with gold and silver. So why is it an expression of pain? Vayhi, the Or Chaim HaKadosh speaks about this. There's a Beis HaLevi, he cites a Medrash. The Medrash tells us, Vayhi b'shalach, the word Vayhi should be read, Vayhi shalach. Hashem said himself, woe that I had to send them out at this moment. Why? Because if they would have stayed longer in Egypt, I would have brought more plagues upon the Egyptians to punish them to a greater degree. So the Beis HaLevi asks, it says in the Pasuk, Roadmap For The Ascent, that God's mercies on all his creations. What God wanted to just give more punishment for the sake of giving more punishment. What's for Roadmap For The Ascent? God has mercy on all his creations, his beings. He goes to explain that initially we were pagans. How were we weaned from paganism? How was it extracted from us? How did we come to a clarity and understanding that paganism is baseless and false, and the deities, the Malachim, which is who the pagans worship, are only manifestations of God's will. It was only as a result of God demonstrating and showing his total dominion on the terrestrial level, on the celestial level, on the atmospheric level, did we come to an understanding that God is the Kol Yochel, God is the omnipotent being, he's the master of all. That's how we came to that. So every miracle we saw, it had a dual purpose. One aspect of that Makkah, of the plague, was to punish the Egyptians. But simultaneously, as we saw the supernatural act, this brought us to another level of belief that we had a greater grasp of God, and finally, at the end of the 10 plagues, we understood fully that God is the master. However, there was still a trace of that effect of the idolatry, of the paganism that we're involved with. It wasn't fully expunged from us. We still had a trace of that. And God, for only he knows how to send us out after 10 plagues. So Hashem is saying, woe to me that I did not keep them longer, because if I would have kept them longer, I would have brought another plague, or more plagues. Because if they would have seen those additional plagues, they would have been fully purged and purified from the paganism, and they would have never reverted back to idolatry ever. And he goes to show from verses from Psukim that the only reason why Klal Yisrael succumbed to the Chet Egel in the desert was only because we still had a trace of that paganism, which was not fully purged from our essence, from our midst. That's the reason. Therefore, it's Vayhi b'shalach. It really, it's woe. It's an expression of tzara, pain. God is pained that he had to send us out at this moment, but it was his decision, because as it says, that if we wouldn't have left at that moment, we would have gone into the oblivion. We were holding by the Memte Shari Tuma, by the 49 level of impurity, and therefore we had to leave. It was exactly 400 years from initially when the bondage was supposed to end, and therefore we had to leave at that particular moment. Therefore, this is Vayhi b'shalach Paro Sa'om. It's interesting. As a result of this, we're still, if that wasn't purged from us then, that element of impurity is still within us. And therefore, as a result of that, the Chet Egel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, every punishment that Klal Yisrael will ever suffer, part of that punishment includes the Chet Egel. Because factually, we have that level of culpability. And we being the descendants of the Klal Yisrael, who were exposed to that impurity, if we have to be atoned, and therefore every punishment we experience has partially part of that, evidently we're still tinged with this aspect of this trace of idolatry of paganism. Therefore, a person being aware that he has, and the Torah says, "Lo surah achrei levavchem," you shouldn't go after your hearts, and achrei nechem, asher atem zonim achreihem. Zonim, the Gemara says, is idolatry. That's nus halev. That's the promiscuity of the heart. You shouldn't go after that. That's nus. That's every Jew, chas v'sholem, still has relevance in this. And therefore, as a result of this, we're told you have to be extra careful not ever to expose yourself to anything which can actually reactivate that trace of impurity within us.